Abandoned in the unforgiving desert, she faced certain death, until a rugged cowboy appeared, his true identity as a hidden millionaire unfolding like a thrilling secret. Under the relentless blaze of the high desert sun, the ground fissured and splintered like ancient pottery, revealing the harshness of a land long parched. The heat danced in the air, distorting the far-off red rocks into haunting mirages. A figure lay still near a parched patch of cactus, her face marred by streaks of dust, lips chapped and raw, wrists cruelly bound behind her back with plastic ties. Once, she was known as Juniper, a name that now felt like a distant echo in the recesses of her mind. Her throat felt like the desert itself, each breath a gritty reminder of the arid landscape surrounding her. Hours had slipped away since she last attempted to scream, her voice lost in the suffocating silence. Her eyes snapped open, drawn to the rhythmic sound of hooves striking the gravel, each crunch echoing like a heartbeat in the stillness. She tilted her head just enough, her vision swirling like a tempest. Struggling to raise her chin even a fraction, a lone rider emerged, silhouetted against the fiery expanse of the azure sky that blazed behind him. He loomed in the saddle, a towering figure with broad shoulders, his battered hat casting a shadow over his rugged face. The tan shirt clung to him, darkened by the relentless sun and the sweat of hard days spent under its unforgiving gaze. He slid off the horse with deliberate slowness, the creature snorting softly as it came to a halt beside her. "You don't seem like the kind of person destined to be forgotten," he remarked, his voice laced with an intensity that hung in the air. His voice resonated softly, a tranquil current flowing through the air, devoid of any hint of judgment. It echoed with the weight of years, shrouded in dust and steeped in silence. Juniper opened her mouth to speak, but a harsh cough escaped instead, echoing in the silence. With a flicker of defiance, she raised her gaze to meet his, her eyes narrowing as she summoned the last remnants of her strength. He knelt beside her, his heart pounding as he absorbed the sight of the bruises marring her arms, the grime that coated her face, and the dried blood that traced a grim line along her temple. "I'm going to cut you loose," he said, his voice low and steady, a warning hanging in the air between them. Silence hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. She remained still, her lips pressed together, offering no reply. A fragment of her mind clung to the notion that he might be nothing more than a figment of her imagination. With a steady hand, he delved into his saddlebag, retrieving a gleaming knife. The blade glinted in the light as he carefully sliced through the ties, each movement deliberate and precise. Her wrists hung limply, aching and rigid from the strain. She flinched, a sharp breath escaping her lips. "Easy now," he whispered, his voice low and soothing as he slipped one arm behind her back and the other beneath her legs, cradling her with a tender yet firm grip. She fought against the tide, but her body surrendered long before her spirit could falter. With a swift motion, he swept her off her feet, cradling her effortlessly as he approached the waiting horse. His strong hands steadied her, guiding her gracefully into the saddle, a moment charged with unspoken connection. With a fierce grip on the horn, she leaned forward, her head spinning in a whirlwind of sensations. "I'm Sawyer," he announced, his voice low and steady as he climbed up behind her, his hands deftly guiding the reins with a practiced ease. Juniper yearned to question his identity, to unravel the mystery of his presence, to understand the reason behind his intrusion. Yet, the relentless sun dragged her deeper into its grasp, and she surrendered to the encroaching darkness. As she stirred from her slumber, a chill touch of damp cloth pressed against her forehead, pulling her back into the waking world. In the shadows, the light flickered weakly, and the subtle scent of firewood lingered in the air. She blinked, her mind foggy, and as her eyes adjusted, she realized she was enclosed within the confines of a tent or perhaps a cabin, its true nature elusive and shrouded in mystery. The walls loomed like a canvas, taut and unyielding against the sturdy wooden frame. A pot bubbled softly over a flickering flame, casting dancing shadows in the dim light. Sawyer sat at the table, the blade glinting as he meticulously sharpened the knife, each stroke echoing in the stillness around him. His shirt lay discarded, flapping gently in the breeze, left to dry in the sun's warm embrace. His back was a canvas of scars, each mark a testament not to the passage of time, but to the brutal violence he had endured. She stared, caught in a tumultuous battle between the sharp sting of pain and the fragile embrace of safety. He turned, his gaze locking onto her as she stirred from sleep. "You've conquered the first nap. That's a good sign," he remarked, his voice steady and unwavering. With a determined effort, she lifted herself, her muscles protesting fiercely against the strain. "Where am I? Where could this place possibly be?" "A couple of miles off the highway, too distant to retreat on foot, yet perilously near for trouble to track us down. Should it choose to approach? Who are you, really? I warned you. My name is Sawyer. That's all you'll need for tonight." Discontent simmered within her, yet the weight of exhaustion stifled her voice, leaving her unable to protest. With a steady hand, he filled a tin cup with water, the cool liquid glistening in the light, and offered it to her with a sense of reverence. She sipped cautiously, each trembling gulp a desperate attempt to quench her thirst. "You were left tied out there to die," he declared, his voice heavy with certainty, not seeking confirmation but delivering a chilling truth. A shadow loomed over you, a chilling certainty that someone wanted you gone. Her fingers clenched around the cup, a surge of tension coursing through her veins. Faces eluded my gaze, a deception spun from her lips. Sawyer held back, choosing silence over inquiry. With a single, deliberate nod, he returned to the rhythmic motion of sharpening, the blade glinting ominously in the dim light. The remainder of the evening unfolded in a heavy silence, each moment stretching out like a taut string, vibrating with unspoken words and lingering tension. As the night enveloped the desert, shrouding it in darkness, and illuminated only by the haunting glow of the moon, Juniper was suddenly jolted awake from a nightmare. A cold sweat clung to her skin, and her heart raced wildly in her chest. She shot up, her eyes racing around the room. Sawyer stood at the tent's entrance, the moon casting an ethereal glow around him, his rifle hanging loosely in his grip. She gasped, her heart racing as she scrambled back against the cot, the shadows closing in around her. He spun around, his hand shooting up in a swift motion. "Relax. I'm not aiming it your way." Her breath came in sharp, uneven gasps. "What compels you to grasp it so tightly? For the one who abandoned you in that desolate place may still have unfinished business. Rest eludes me, particularly when unfamiliar faces linger in the shadows. Do you believe they'll return?" "They often do, driven by an unyielding resolve to complete what they began." She swallowed hard, her pulse beginning to steady. "If only slightly. Do they not send a shiver down your spine?" "I have endured enough to no longer fear the shadows that loom ahead." He emerged into the cool air, the rifle cradled in his hands, and settled onto a weathered wooden stool just beyond the tent flap. A delicate wisp of smoke curled upward from a flickering fire, casting an eerie shadow in the dim light. Juniper reclined once more, her gaze fixed on the vast canvas that loomed above her. The desert lay in a heavy silence once more, yet now, a man stood with a gun, a barrier between her and the lurking shadows that had pursued her relentlessly. For the first time in days, an unfamiliar sensation stirred within her, a flicker of hope amidst the encroaching darkness. Not safety, not trust, but perhaps, just perhaps, the dawn of a second chance. The desert stretched endlessly, a harsh and relentless expanse, yet the man who called it home glided through the sands with an elegance that defied the brutal landscape. Sawyer tended to the fire with care each morning, keeping its flames modest, while brewing coffee that had the bitter taste of charred earth. Yet, despite its harsh flavor, it brought a comforting warmth to Juniper's chest, a steady presence that lingered like a watchful guardian, reminding her of the stark reality they faced. He remained silent about her injuries, never probing into the origins of the bruises or the identity of those who had abandoned her. He approached her with a fresh cloth, gently placing it on her forehead, the warmth of the fire crackling in the background as he tended to it, his words few but heavy with unspoken thoughts. She reveled in the stillness, until the moment it became unbearable. "Are you really not going to ask me anything?" She finally spoke, her voice parched yet more resolute than it had been the night before. Sawyer crouched at the camp's edge, his fingers deftly inspecting the saddle straps on his horse, the tension in the air palpable. He pressed forward, never casting a glance behind him. "Nope, not even from my own place. I'll be waiting for the moment you decide to share your thoughts. Or perhaps you won't." She gazed at him, disoriented by the sudden void of tension. She had grown accustomed to the constant demands of others, seeking her insights, her justifications, her resources, her precious moments. Sawyer appeared to be a figure untouched by desire, a void of need that left others questioning what lay beneath his calm exterior. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, she ventured to assist him with the firewood, her determination igniting a spark of hope in the crisp morning air. With a determined limp, she approached the heap he had brought in, a half-splintered branch clutched tightly under her arm. He merely raised an eyebrow, intrigue flickering in his gaze. "Are you attempting to stumble once more?" Her brow furrowed in a deep scowl. "I can haul a handful of logs." With a casual shrug, he relinquished control, allowing her to take the lead. It was the sole instance of tenderness he revealed throughout the entire day. The sun ascended in the sky, casting a golden hue over the land as Sawyer mounted his horse. He tossed her a weathered straw hat, a token of their bond, before riding out with a rope coiled tightly over his shoulder, ready for whatever awaited him on the horizon. "Don't burn the place down," he warned, his voice low and steady as he mounted up, the weight of his words hanging in the air like smoke before a fire. "I will return before the shadows of dusk creep in." Juniper lingered in solitude, the hours stretching endlessly before her. She ventured to the fringes of the camp, where a canvas tent stood like a sentinel, a lean-to huddled beneath a patchwork of brush and tin, and a fragile garden of desert herbs fought to survive against the harsh elements. Darkness enveloped the surroundings, a suffocating silence broken only by the echoes of isolation. No flicker of electricity, no ring of a phone, just an impenetrable barrier separating them from the outside world. It felt as though one had crossed the threshold into a forgotten era. Her gaze fell upon the fractured surface of a mirror, its shards reflecting a distorted version of herself, suspended beside the weathered water barrel. Her eyes were hollow, shadows clinging to their depths, while the corners of her mouth were drawn tight, a ghostly pallor marking her expression. Her face bore the marks of a week's relentless struggle, stripped of makeup, devoid of the polished suit, and far from the confines of the boardroom. Only the stark reality of raw survival remained. Once, she had held the prestigious title of assistant CFO at a burgeoning tech firm, but now, she found herself in the desolate expanse of nowhere, receiving canned beans from a man who appeared to be more a part of the earth than any identity he might claim. Sawyer emerged just as the sun started to spill its fiery hues across the horizon. He trudged forward, two rabbits dangling from a stick slung across his shoulders, their cleaned and skinned forms swaying gently with each step, a testament to his skill and the hunt that had just unfolded. His shirt bore the haunting marks of red dust, a testament to the journey he had endured. He appeared as if he had stepped straight out of a storybook, the sort of figure whose existence you could never quite believe. Silence enveloped them as they ate, the air thick with unspoken thoughts. It was she who shattered it all. "I used to work in finance," she said, her gaze fixed on the flickering flames, as if the fire held the secrets of her past. "In the shadowy world of finance, where fortunes are forged and empires rise and fall, the dance of private equity and mergers unfolds. Each deal is a high-stakes gamble, a calculated risk that could lead to unimaginable wealth or devastating loss." Sawyer remained silent, his gaze fixed on the ground, as if the weight of unspoken words pressed heavily upon him. Her eyes flicked upward. "Did that catch you off guard?" He gazed at her from across the flickering flames, his eyes cloaked in the deep shadows cast by the brim of his hat. "Nope. You really believe I don't resemble someone who manages $100 million fund? You seem like someone who's faced the fires of hell and emerged unscathed," he said, his voice low and intense. The words struck her heart like a heavy stone, sinking deep and leaving a profound ache in their wake. "I was framed," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and defiance. A presence lurked within, desperate to see me gone. A shadowy web of deception unfolded before me. An orchestrated audit that was nothing but a facade, counterfeit emails swirling like ghosts in the digital ether, and a burner phone, sinister and clandestine, lurking in the depths of my office. Sawyer's hands danced with purpose as he meticulously cleaned his knife, They presented me with a stark ultimatum: accept the blame and face the consequences, or seize the settlement and vanish into the shadows. And you didn't like either, he said, his voice laced with an unsettling certainty. I didn't choose either, she responded, her voice laced with an enigmatic tension. I sprinted, my heart pounding in my chest as I fled into the unknown. I thought I could reach the press first, unveil the entire truth, but they were quicker than I anticipated. He nodded slowly, a flicker of recognition in his eyes, as if the tale was one he had encountered before, or perhaps even experienced himself in a different life. And the desert, he questioned, was never meant to be part of the plan. With a steady hand, he prodded the glowing embers of the fire, sending sparks dancing into the night sky. Not a chance. Her gaze lingered on him, a silent tension hanging in the air, before she finally broke the stillness with a question. How long have you been out here? He hesitated, the silence stretching between them like a taut wire. At last, he spoke, his voice breaking the silence that had stretched on for what felt like an eternity. That's not the response I was seeking. This is the sole chance you have for tonight. She tilted her head, a curious glint in her eyes as if she were deciphering a hidden message in the air around her. When was the last time you had a conversation with someone who wasn't either wounded or fleeing for their life? He locked his gaze with hers, long enough to lose the very essence of trust. The flames danced and flickered, casting shadows that intertwined around them. She felt an irresistible urge to probe deeper, to unearth the serene enigma he cloaked himself in like a protective shield. Yet, an invisible force held her back. Instead, she whispered, "Thank you for not abandoning me in that darkness." Sawyer gave a single, decisive nod before rising to his feet. He approached the edge of the clearing, the air thick with anticipation, and settled against a rugged rock, his rifle resting heavily across his knees. It unfolded just like the night before. "Do you always sleep like this?" she inquired. "It is only in the presence of something truly precious that the instinct to protect awakens." She remained silent, the question hanging in the air, unspoken yet heavy with implication. Did he mean her? The thought lingered, electrifying the space between them. Yet, the words remained unspoken. Yet, in the profound silence of the high desert night, enveloped by an expanse of stars and the whispering wind, Juniper felt a flicker of hope. A rare moment when she dared to believe she could finally surrender to sleep. A flicker in the darkness. The first sign was the light. Two slender beams pierced the distant darkness, slicing through the night like fiery spears. Juniper lingered at the edge of the tent, a cup of water cradled in her hand, when her gaze fell upon them. Headlights flickered across the rugged terrain, drawing nearer from the eastern edge of the ridge, casting eerie shadows in their wake. Her heart came to a standstill. Without a word, she pivoted sharply and fled into the shadows. Sawyer knelt beneath the shadow of the lean-to, meticulously cleaning his rifle, each movement deliberate and precise. She came to a sudden stop just inches away from him. "Lights," she breathed, her voice barely a whisper, as if the very air around her crackled with electricity. Two figures emerged from the shadows, drawing closer with each passing moment. He remained silent, offering no questions about the location or the proximity. He sprang to his feet, a whirlwind of energy and anticipation, his gaze piercing the distant horizon. With a swift motion, he seized the rifle and his saddlebag, determination coursing through him as he approached the waiting horse. "Leave everything behind," he commanded. "We charge forward." Juniper's voice faltered, a tremor weaving through her words. Could it be them? His gaze locked onto hers. "I would wager my very last breath on it." She remained silent. With a surge of determination, she mounted the horse behind him, her fingers gripping his waist tightly as he urged the steed into a thunderous gallop. The camp faded into the distance, swallowed by a swirling haze of shadows and dust. The wind howled like a restless spirit as they raced across the barren expanse, the dry brush lashing at their legs with every frantic step. Sawyer's grip was unyielding, his body melding with the rhythm of the terrain, navigating each twist and turn where stone met the vast expanse of the sky. As they ventured into the narrow canyon, the walls loomed above them like jagged fangs, the moonlight casting eerie stripes across the stone, illuminating the path ahead with a haunting glow. Engines thundered behind them, a relentless roar that echoed in the air. "They've got trucks!" Juniper shouted, his voice barely cutting through the howling wind. "They won't see this cut through," Sawyer shouted, his voice echoing with urgency. Excessively confined. We have a single opportunity. The horse surged up the steep incline, its hooves echoing against the unforgiving stone, each thud resonating with the promise of adventure that lay ahead on the high plateau. From their vantage point, the world stretched endlessly before them, a breathtaking panorama, until the sharp crack of gunfire shattered the stillness like a storm breaking loose. The first bullet ricocheted off a nearby rock, sending shards of stone flying just inches from their position. Juniper ducked, heart racing as the world around her blurred into a whirlwind of danger. Sawyer spun around, deftly maneuvering the horse into the shadowy refuge of a cluster of boulders. "We'll draw them in," he declared, dismounting with a purposeful grace. "You remain silent and still. If I tumble, you take the reins." With a fierce grip, she seized his arm. "Absolutely not. You can't venture out there by yourself." Their gazes locked in a moment that felt electric. "I faced it before. The essence lies elsewhere." He paused, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his mind. Then the voices emerged, echoing through the silence. "Fan out. They must not reach the pass." Footsteps thundered against the gravel, each strike echoing in the stillness of the night. From the shadowy depths of the lower ridge, 3 figures materialized, their flashlights cutting through the oppressive darkness like blades of light. Sawyer surged forward with the speed of a thunderbolt. With a swift motion, he lunged at the first man, intercepting him before he could even think to raise his weapon. The impact was brutal as he slammed him to the ground, the gun clattering away, rendered useless in an instant. The second shot flew towards Juniper, slicing through the air with deadly intent. She hit the ground like a bullet, the dust swirling up mere inches from her face. Sawyer spun around, fists unleashed, driving a fierce elbow into the second man's gut. Yet, from the shadows of a jagged rock, the third attacker unleashed a shot. The sound sliced through the air like a whip crack, sharp and electrifying. Juniper's piercing scream shattered the silence, echoing through the darkened room. He dropped to one knee, pain radiating through his shoulder as he gripped it tightly. Crimson liquid streamed through his trembling fingers. The attackers faltered, uncertainty creeping in, their ranks breaking apart under the weight of his fierce resolve. Yet Juniper hesitated, not a moment. With urgency coursing through her veins, she lunged towards Sawyer, pulling him swiftly behind the shelter of the nearest rock face. "Stay down," he rasped, his voice a low, urgent whisper that cut through the tension like a knife. "Silence," she spat, her hands pressed tightly against the gaping wound. His shirt clung to him, drenched, while her hands glistened, stained with crimson. "Crimson streams cascade from your wounds, each drop a reminder of the urgency that grips you." "It's through and through," he growled, his teeth clenched tight. "I will survive. Are you absolutely certain?" "No," he said, his voice taut with tension. "Yet I yearn to." With a swift motion, she ripped a strip from his shirt and bound it tightly around his shoulder, the urgency of the moment electrifying the air between them. He winced, his jaw tight with tension, yet he held back the scream that threatened to escape. Not a single sound escaped their lips. "You've done this before," she whispered, her fingers trembling with anticipation. "Countless moments have slipped through my fingers." "Why?" Silence hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. He remained unresponsive. The echoes of the chase had dwindled into silence. It was unclear whether the men had vanished into the shadows, or were silently gathering their strength for what lay ahead. She pressed closer, their foreheads touching, a silent connection sparking between them. "I won't allow you to perish in this place," she declared fiercely. "It's not my path." He blinked, sweat cascading down his temple like a relentless waterfall. "I didn't do it for you," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, laden with unspoken truths. "I faced it head-on, refusing to retreat from those who once held power over me." Her gaze pierced through him, unveiling not merely the pain etched on his face, but a tapestry of memories, deep, silent, and long concealed beneath the surface. Not just a wanderer. He was far from ordinary. He was far from ordinary. A soul who had once shed blood for a cause greater than themselves, and continued to do so without falter. "We need to move," she urged, her voice urgent as she pulled him to his feet. He grunted, his body swaying unsteadily, yet he leaned on her just enough to keep from falling. They ventured further into the canyon, where the towering stone walls closed in around them, swallowing the moonlight and plunging them into an eerie darkness. With every step, a crimson path unfurled behind them, yet neither dared to glance back. It was a definitive end, a closing chapter that echoed with finality. The canyon lay in eerie silence, the only sound the wind's relentless push, sweeping dust across the jagged rocks. They had stumbled into a shallow cave, a mere crevice in the stone, yet it offered a glimmer of refuge amidst the chaos. Sawyer leaned heavily against the jagged rock wall, the crimson liquid oozing steadily through the crude bandage wrapped around his wound. Juniper clutched the meager supplies they had managed to salvage: tattered blankets, a battered canteen, and an ancient leather satchel that Sawyer had hastily tossed over the saddle in their frantic escape. He slipped into a shallow slumber, his jaw tight, even in the depths of unconsciousness. With urgency, Juniper plunged her hands into the satchel, her fingers dancing over the carefully folded cloth, sifting through the remnants of a few coins and a metal tin filled with dried herbs, all in a desperate quest for more bandages. As her fingers glided through the shadows, they encountered something solid, a wooden block, square and unyielding. With a deliberate motion, she revealed a small box, its dimensions reminiscent of a toolbox, edges frayed with age, and the clasp bearing the marks of time, a hint of rust clinging to its surface. It stood there, an anomaly in its surroundings, meticulously crafted and unnaturally pristine. With a moment of uncertainty hanging in the air, she finally summoned courage to pry it open. Within the confines of the box, meticulously swathed in linen, lay a collection of paper items, each one a relic from no later than a decade past. A hand-drawn map lay before them, its surface marked by the bold strokes of red ink that encircled regions labeled with an ominous indicating places surveyed yet shrouded in mystery, forbidden to all who dared to venture near. Forbidden to all who dared to venture near. Faded photos lay scattered, Polaroids whispering secrets of the past, some bent yet defiantly revealing their stories. A younger, cleaner-cut Sawyer stood confidently in a sharp suit, flanked by two older men, all three poised before the imposing facade of a corporate building. He stood there, rigid and expressionless, a foreigner trapped within his own flesh. Underneath the photos lay newspaper clippings, creased yet still legible, whispering secrets of the past. As she unfolded one, time seemed to stand still, and a chill ran down her spine. The headline blared: "Sawyer Mercer turns his back on empire, rejects the $3.20 legacy." Her breath hitched in her throat. The name echoed in her mind, a haunting whisper from the past. All had experienced it. The Mercer Corporation loomed large over the Southwest, a titan among private landholders, its influence stretching across mining, oil, and development. Whispers of intrigue and uncertainty filled the air when the heir apparent vanished without a trace 6 years ago, mere months before he was destined to ascend to the throne. Without a trace. Without a whisper. They simply disappeared. Whispers spread through the shadows, claiming he had lost his mind. Whispers danced through the air, carrying the chilling rumor that he was dead. With trembling fingers, Juniper grasped the last item nestled in the box, a folded letter, its yellowed stationery whispering secrets of the past. It bore the delicate strokes of soft handwriting, a reminder for those moments when you lose sight of why you ever left. With careful hands, she unfurled it, revealing its secrets. "My son, you were not forged for wealth, even though it rests in your hands. Control was never your destiny, yet the world demands it of you. In the stillness, you found your purpose. Crafted for the art of listening, for the gentle embrace of silence, and for safeguarding the voiceless treasures that linger in the shadows. There is no obligation to bear the weight of the world on your shoulders. Just don't allow it to extinguish the tenderness within you." It was signed with a heartfelt promise. "Love always, Mom." Juniper knelt, her heels digging into the ground as she took a moment to absorb her surroundings. Everything fell into alignment, as if the universe had orchestrated a perfect moment. His movements were fluid, almost predatory, and he spoke in clipped phrases, never exceeding 5 words, but it was the glint in his eyes, sharp and calculating, that sent a chill down her spine when she dared to mention corruption. He was still there, lurking in the shadows. He had made the decisive choice to extricate himself from a situation beyond his control, resolutely turning away from the path of self-destruction in his futile attempts to mend it. She sensed a subtle shift in the air behind her and turned, heart racing. Sawyer lay in a haze, barely conscious, his eyes flickering open as he watched her clutch the letter tightly in her hands. His expression remained unfazed. With a deliberate slowness, she rose, the letter clutched tightly in her hand. Sawyer Mercer stood in silence, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavily in the air. The plan was set in motion for you to seize control of Mercer Corp., yet you faltered at the crucial moment. With a single, deliberate nod, he acknowledged the weight of the moment. With each step, you distanced yourself from the past, leaving behind echoes of what once was. I stepped outside, his voice rasping in the still air. It didn't feel like the right moment to turn and walk away. What drives this question? What lies beneath the surface of such a simple word? A quest for understanding, a yearning for clarity, or perhaps a deep-seated need to unravel the mysteries that surround us. Her voice trembled, breaking the silence like fragile glass shattering in the stillness. Everything could have been transformed from within. I tried, he said, his voice heavy with unspoken regret. They warned me I was too gentle, that putting an end to illegal drilling would lead to job losses, that revealing the truth about our partners would send the market crashing down. So you disappeared without a trace? I ceased to play the role, he responded. Fate had cast me in a role I never desired. Yet here I stood, teetering on the edge of darkness, grappling with the weight of a destiny that sought to label me a villain. Her gaze lingered on him, a silent intensity stretching between them. I thought you saved me, she whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of hope and despair. But now I wonder, perhaps you were longing for someone to awaken the truth of your very essence. His voice barely broke the silence, a whisper that seemed to hang in the air, drawing in every ear around him. I remained unseen, yet present. I have finally stepped away from the narrative that never belonged to me. The silence hung heavy in the air, yet it radiated warmth. The stillness held the weight of undeniable truth. With a soft click, Juniper closed the box, the sound echoing in the stillness as he placed it carefully beside him. With a sense of urgency, she knelt down, her hands trembling slightly as she dipped the cloth into the cool water of the canteen. Carefully, she pressed it against his temple, hoping to soothe the fever that burned beneath the surface. Then let's craft a masterpiece, she declared, and this time, he faced it head-on. Juniper vanished without a word, leaving an echo of silence in her wake. As dawn broke, she slipped away, the first pale light spilling over the canyon walls, stretching long shadows across the slumbering desert. Sawyer lay motionless on the bedroll within the shadows of the cave, his breaths deep and even, the bandage on his shoulder a stark reminder of the battle fought. At last, his weary body found a moment of peace amidst the darkness. She lingered beside him for an hour, the darkness of the night wrapping around them, caught in a fierce battle between the urge to stay and the need to flee as the first light of dawn began to creep. Cradling the wooden box in her lap, she pored over the letter from his mother, her eyes tracing the words as if they held the key to a forgotten world. The map lay open before her, its inked lines marking the shadows of his past, places where memories lingered like ghosts. Yet, despite the weight of it all, she turned and walked away, leaving behind the echoes of what once was. She left the horse behind, opting instead for a simple canvas satchel. Inside, she packed a flask of water, a sharp knife, and the carefully sketched road chart he had drawn in charcoal on aged parchment. With determination, she navigated the ridge trail, her eyes fixed on the horizon as she moved east toward the forgotten supply road. With a stroke of fortune, perhaps someone would come her way. Otherwise, she would embark on a grueling 10-mile trek to the nearest gas station. Anger was merely a dull throb in her chest, overshadowed by a deeper, more consuming emotion. The pain cut deeper with the dawning truth. Sawyer had chosen not to confide in her. It wasn't her status as a stranger that held him back. It was the belief that no one could grasp the burden he bore, not even the one who had come so close to losing everything by his side. By midday, she arrived in the town of Perdido Springs, her skin scorched by the relentless sun. It stood as a weary outpost in the vast expanse, a lone diner with flickering neon lights, a hardware store that seemed to hold the weight of forgotten dreams, and a post office, its doors sealed shut for weeks, shrouded in an air of abandonment. Inside the dimly lit diner, she fumbled with her trembling hands as she ordered a cup of coffee, her voice barely above a whisper. With a sense of urgency, she leaned closer to the server, her eyes darting around the room, and inquired about the sheriff's office. A trailer sits quietly out back, waiting. Sheriff Hayes makes his rounds on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but only if the truck is running smoothly. Saturday dawned, a day ripe with possibilities. Juniper muttered a string of curses, her frustration bubbling just beneath the surface. With a swift motion, she shoved the coffee cup aside, her heart racing as she approached the payphone by the door. Fingers trembling, she dialed the nearest county office, urgency coursing through her veins. 15 minutes of silence stretched like an eternity, filled only with dead tones and endless rerouting. Finally, she left a message, brief, clipped, and hauntingly unsatisfying. A woman's voice echoed from behind, drawing her attention like a moth to a flame. They're out there now, meticulously surveying the Mercer ridgeline, equipped with drone markers and all the latest technology. Juniper pivoted with deliberate slowness. At the adjacent table, 2 men and a woman leaned over their lunch trays, their blueprints unfurled like secrets waiting to be uncovered. They donned crisp shirts, tailored khakis, and corporate badges fastened to their belts, each detail meticulously arranged. The woman's voice cut through the silence once more. In just a month, the preparations for the ground will begin, setting the stage for what's to come. Time is running out for the old man out there. If he doesn't file a land claim soon, he risks losing everything. No title, no rights, nothing left to hold on to. One of the men let out a derisive snort. If he possesses any wit, he'll gather his belongings and slip away into the shadows once more. None dare to provoke the weight of the family name etched on the deed. With a surge of determination, Juniper stepped forward, silencing the doubts that threatened to hold her back. "Which company claimed your allegiance?" she inquired. Startled, they glanced upward. "Ma'am," she said, her finger tracing the intricate lines of the blueprints. "The project. Who holds the purse strings behind it all?" The woman replied, her voice laced with caution. "It all leads back to Madeira Holdings. We are merely contractors." Juniper stood still, her heart pounding in her chest. Madeira operated as a shadowy subsidiary of the formidable Mercer Corp. They were closing in on him once more, not out of recognition, but from ignorance, believing the desert was a barren void, that the land held no significance. She spun away, silence enveloping her as she stepped into the street, her lungs aflame with more than just the sweltering heat. She could have continued on her path, lost in her thoughts. She stood at the crossroads, the weight of choice heavy on her shoulders. She could have turned her back, allowing him to fade into the shadows once more. It was never hers to claim. This battle was not hers to wage. Yet, deep within her core, an unsettling certainty gnawed at her. She could vividly picture his actions if the roles were reversed, if it were someone else standing in her place. He would rise, no matter the cost, no matter the pain that threatened to drain him completely. He would rise, for that was his unwavering resolve. She was determined not to let him face it alone. At the outskirts of town, Juniper stumbled upon a weathered rancher, his life etched into the lines of his sun-kissed face. With a sense of urgency, she traded her watch, a relic of time, for a one-way journey back toward the canyon, where secrets whispered in the wind awaited her return. The truck's windows bore the scars of time, each crack a testament to the journeys it had endured. The radio lay silent, yet the engine roared to life. Dust danced in the air, swirling like a restless spirit as they raced toward the horizon, the west beckoning with its untold mysteries. As she stepped into the cave, an unsettling silence enveloped her. It was utterly devoid of life. Initially, a surge of panic gripped her heart, but then her gaze fell upon the footprints. One set of sturdy boots and another, a drag trail that whispered of a struggle. Crimson droplets trickled and vanished against the jagged rock. Sawyer had relocated, just a short distance, but to a place where shadows felt less threatening. She pursued the winding path, her heart racing as it guided her to a shallow ravine, cloaked in shadows and concealed from the watchful sky above. He lay there, on the brink of awareness, clutching his shoulder, each breath a fragile whisper. As his eyes fluttered open and leaned it on her, Silence enveloped the moment. She didn't either. With a swift motion, she let the bag fall to the ground beside him, then knelt down, her eyes locked onto his as she poured water into his waiting hand. He took a sip, hesitantly, his gaze fixed on her as if caught in a surreal reverie. "You returned," he rasped, his voice a low, haunting echo in the dim light. Juniper's voice resonated with unwavering strength. "Not for you," he blinked, his eyes narrowing as a shadow of doubt flickered across his face. "I returned," she declared, "because you're the type of man who never abandons anyone, and I refuse to do that as well." Sawyer shut his eyes, plunging into the depths of darkness. A slow, agonizing smile began to unfurl on his face, as if each corner of his lips fought against the weight of his sorrow. For the first time since the desert had nearly consumed them both, a profound sense of togetherness enveloped them, banishing the solitude that had once haunted their hearts. The sun hung high in the sky, casting its relentless gaze as the meeting commenced. Sawyer stood at the entrance of the old mission church, his shoulder bound tightly, yet his voice rang out with unwavering clarity. Around him loomed a throng of 30, ranchers and homesteaders, weathered old-timers with calloused hands and sun-cracked faces, each one a testament to the harshness of the land they toiled upon. Juniper lingered in the shadows, keenly observing each flicker of uncertainty, every determined nod that punctuated the air. "They believe this land is barren," Sawyer murmured, a glint of defiance in his eyes. "They believe that our silence signifies surrender, that we will crumble, sell out, and disappear into the shadows." He gazed into the sea of faces before him. A hand shot up from the shadows at the back, drawing attention like a beacon in the dark. "What are our options? They possess drones, trucks, and a battalion of lawyers. They've also got a clock," Juniper said, stepping forward, the weight of the moment hanging in the air. "Madeira Holdings is racing against time, acutely aware that their right to drill is nothing more than a fleeting illusion. If we can hold them off just a little longer, if we can prevent them from establishing their foothold within the next 72 hours, we might just seize the precious time we need, a chance to secure a court injunction, perhaps even to drive them away for good." An older woman stood with her arms crossed, a silent sentinel of unspoken thoughts. What if they refused to hear the truth? Sawyer's gaze remained unwavering. "Then we ensure that digging becomes an insurmountable challenge for them." As the sun dipped lower in the sky, they plunged into their tasks, determination etched on their faces. With a sense of urgency, the locals pored over boundary records and ancient survey maps, meticulously marking the edges of privately owned and fiercely contested land. They erected wire, pounded wooden stakes into the ground, and suspended haphazard signs that boldly proclaimed occupied and under review. Juniper meticulously orchestrated the intricate web of routes and rotations, each decision a thread in the tapestry of their unfolding journey. Sawyer toiled tirelessly, his one hand working methodically to carve out trenches at vital entrances, each movement deliberate and unyielding. As dawn broke, the desert erupted from its stillness. As the first light of dawn broke over the valley, 3 ominous black trucks emerged from the shadows, their engines rumbling like distant thunder. Contractors moved with purpose, private security loomed in the shadows, and a man in mirrored sunglasses emerged, exuding an air of authority that demanded compliance. Juniper encountered him at the midpoint of the ridge, where the air crackled with tension, and the landscape loomed ominously around them. "This is private land," she declared, her voice unwavering and resolute. "You've crossed a line." His lips curled into a disdainful sneer. "Do you have a title in mind?" Sawyer approached her side, the air thick with unspoken tension. "We have more than enough." "Who on earth are you?" "Once a figure of authority who held the power to sign your paychecks." Sawyer's voice dripped with icy detachment. The man's face drained of color, a fleeting shadow crossing his features, before he erupted into laughter. "Sawyer Mercer, the whispers had been right all along." "They always are," Sawyer murmured, a hint of resignation in his voice. At last, the tension shattered the silence, a bolt of lightning slicing through the oppressive stillness of the morning heat. The man raised a hand, a silent signal cast behind him. "Permits are in hand. To halt our progress is to invite a lawsuit." "We halt you," Juniper declared, "for we possess the power to do so." The initial thrust arrived with a sudden intensity. 3 guards surged toward the east fence, their determination palpable as they attempted to breach its defenses. With determination etched on their faces, the locals formed a barricade, their pickups standing resolute against the encroaching tide. The contractors shifted their focus to the south side, only to be confronted by a formidable line of people on foot. Some brandished signs, while others stood resolute, their unwavering gazes piercing through the tension in the air. Then emerged the West Ridge, a desolate expanse, untouched and unknown. Juniper's heart raced as she sprinted, the shadows in black slipping through the underbrush like phantoms in the night. With a swift motion, she veered sharply, slicing through the field to lure them away. They caught sight of her. She raced toward the edge of the bluff, the wind whipping through her hair, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. Gunfire erupted, shattering the tense silence. Sawyer caught the sound echoing from the depths of the clearing. He sprinted forward, the agony in his shoulder a distant echo, the crimson stain spreading through his bandage a testament to his struggle. He watched as Juniper faltered, her foot catching on an unseen obstacle, sending her crashing to her knees. One of the men lifted his weapon, the air thick with tension. Sawyer sprang into action without a moment's pause. With a fierce determination, he surged ahead, crashing into the man just before the trigger could be pulled. They plummeted to the earth, a chaotic whirlwind of limbs and swirling dust. A shot pierced the silence, echoing through the air with reckless abandon. Another hand lunged for Juniper, reaching out with desperate urgency. With a swift roll, she propelled herself into action, her foot striking with fierce determination as she scrambled backward, heart racing. But then, a second shot rang out. Sawyer recoiled, his body swaying unsteadily. Juniper's scream pierced the silence, echoing through the darkness. He collapsed to the ground, his knees hitting the earth as blood spread across his chest, unfurling like a vivid crimson flower in the midst of a darkened battlefield. She dashed to his side, collapsing beside him, her hands trembling uncontrollably. "No," she whispered. "Don't leave me. Please. Stay with me." He attempted to utter a word, but the metallic taste of blood stained his lips. The crowd surged forward, a tidal wave of anticipation and energy, each person drawn into the thrumming pulse of the moment. Locals surged forward, ranchers leading the charge, their voices rising in a cacophony of shouts. Cameras captured every moment, while the distant wail of sirens echoed ominously in the air. The attackers dispersed, vanishing into the swirling dust like shadows fleeing the light. But Sawyer remained rooted in his spot, eyes wide with disbelief, breath coming in shallow gasps, anchored in the sanctuary he had embraced as his silence, and now the very ground he had sacrificed for. Sawyer clung to life, teetering on the edge of existence. The bullet ripped through his chest, skimming the lung and shattering a rib in its merciless path. "A miracle," the old doctor murmured, his voice heavy with disbelief, that it had missed his heart by less than an inch. Juniper remained steadfast by the bedside, unwavering in her vigil. She endured the relentless fevers, the haunting nights filled with his anguished groans, and the fleeting moments when he let slip secrets from the past, words he never intended to voice. Whispers of identity linger in the air, each syllable a thread woven into the tapestry of existence, haunting echoes of what could have been. Hidden depths he had concealed within himself for years. She gently pressed a cool cloth to his forehead, her fingers brushing against his skin as she tended to his wounds with care. The air was thick with the scent of old paper. As she opened a tattered book, discovered near the worn cot, her voice weaving through the verses of poems that spoke of flowing rivers, untamed wild horses, and distant lands where the wind whispered softly instead of biting harshly. In the stillness of the night he would awaken, his gaze falling upon her. Words eluded him, yet she would offer a smile, a silent promise that she remained by his side, unwavering and steadfast. As the storm finally relented, Sawyer found solace on the porch, cocooned in a wool blanket, enveloped by the earthy aroma of sagebrush and the lingering whispers of dust. Juniper entered the room, a steaming cup of tea cradled in her hands, honey glistening on the surface. She wove tales that danced in the air, tales not of corporate battles or the chaos she had escaped, but of her mother's garden bursting with color, of the old red swing that creaked under her weight, and of that unforgettable moment when she first rode a horse, only to tumble to the ground, laughter spilling from her lips like sunlight breaking through clouds. Once, he let out a laugh that echoed through the silence. It resonated like a long-forgotten melody, awakening a skill he thought he had lost forever. As his body mended, an unspoken bond began to flourish, a connection that transcended the need for words or explanations. It loomed in the shadows, an undeniable presence that demanded attention. As she handed him his hat just before the wind began to howl, he leaned in closer, captivated by the sound of her voice as she read aloud, savoring the warmth of her breath against his skin. On the 7th day of healing, as the sky transformed into a canvas of gold, Sawyer turned to her with a glint of adventure in his eyes and invited her to ride alongside him. "Are you absolutely certain?" Juniper's gaze flicked to his side, a mix of curiosity and concern etched across his face. "I won't go far," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Just up the ridge." They rode slowly, 2 horses side by side, their shadows stretching like dark fingers across the glowing orange hills. At the summit, they dismounted, standing beneath a gnarled tree, its twisted branches clinging to the cliff as if it had defiantly chosen to endure against all odds. Sawyer's fingers brushed against the fabric of his worn shirt, and with a deliberate motion, he retrieved a small pouch from the depths of his breast pocket. From it, he extracted a silver ring, aged and flawed, yet undeniably beautiful. The band, slightly bent and worn by the passage of time, held within its embrace 7 words, etched in delicate script that whispered secrets of the past. "Never flee from love, even when it sends shivers down your spine." Juniper's gaze locked onto the engraving, a knot forming in her throat. "It belonged to my mother," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "She handed it to me on the eve of my departure, all of it. He said that if I ever discovered a reason to cease my relentless flight, I would understand." With that, he extended the ring toward me, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "I once held a place in that world, Juniper," he confessed, his voice heavy with memories. "The meetings, the boardrooms, the legacy. It all feels like a distant echo now. It had never belonged to me, not truly, yet I seized it, drawn in by the simplicity of the choice over confronting something genuine." Her gaze locked onto him, eyes brimming with intensity. "And then I left it," he continued, his voice a low, steady murmur, not out of bravery, but from a deep-seated fear of the person I might turn into. I had lost all sense of belonging, and just as that thought settled in my mind, he stepped closer. "Yet now, all I crave is to be yours completely." Juniper remained silent, the weight of the moment hanging heavily in the air. Tears brimmed in her eyes, warm and heavy, cascading silently down her cheeks. With trembling fingers, she grasped the ring, her heart racing as the weight of its significance settled upon her. In that fleeting moment, beneath the expansive golden sky, she found herself enveloped in a sensation long forgotten. Questions about the why, the how, or the uncertainty of tomorrow faded into the background, overshadowed by the intensity of what she felt, a spark that had eluded her for years. Secure, not from peril, but from the shadows of oblivion, from the grip of abandonment. As she slid the ring onto her finger, a surge of anticipation coursed through her veins, and she looked up, her heart racing with the weight of the moment. "I'm not running either," she declared, her voice steady and unwavering. Sawyer's chest heaved with a force that transcended mere breath. They leaned into each other, their arms entwining as the sky surrendered to the encroaching dusk. Their foreheads met, fingers intertwining over a heart slowly mending. For the first time in their long, battered lives, they weren't merely surviving. They were on the brink of a new beginning. And this time, they would face it together, united in their resolve. 1 year slipped away. The land had transformed, yet it remained intact, a testament to the unwavering love that had nurtured it through time. The winds howled through the canyon, the sun poured molten gold over the jagged rocks, and the night reverberated with the haunting calls of coyotes. Yet now, life surged forth, steady, humble, and profoundly anchored. They whispered its name. Red Haven. Once, It was merely a vast expanse of high desert where Sawyer would vanish from the world, leaving behind the noise and chaos of life. It had transformed into a sanctuary, a haven where children from fractured backgrounds discovered the thrill of riding, the serenity of breathing, and the freedom of living without fear. Here, teenagers forged their identities through mending fences and grooming horses, while the stillness enveloped them, mending wounds that words could never touch. Juniper had turned the dilapidated lean-to into a vibrant, open-air classroom, where the whispers of nature mingled with the eager voices of curious minds. She imparted the art of survival, the secrets of budgeting, and the thrilling technique of igniting a fire without singeing your eyebrows. Under the shelter of the porch awning, a whiteboard lay waiting, its surface ready to capture fleeting thoughts and ideas. Beside it, a jar of cold lemonade stood invitingly by the door, a refreshing promise of relief from the sweltering heat. Sawyer moved through the desert with an air of ownership, his presence commanding attention. No longer just Mercer, he was known as the man who mended saddles without charge, a gentle soul who earned the trust of even the most skittish animals. His origins remained a mystery, shrouded in silence. They arrived with weary horses and restless sons, lingering far beyond their intended time. The townspeople whispered his name with a mix of reverence and familiarity, dubbing him the good neighbor, and in that title alone, he found his purpose. In the absence of cameras and headlines, a profound silence enveloped the scene. It was a realm of diligent labor, where honest days unfolded, and the rhythmic clatter of hammers echoed, forging a brighter future from the raw materials of hope and determination. As the sun dipped low in the sky, igniting the horizon with fiery shades of orange, Juniper emerged from the house, cradling a small child in her arms. The little girl, barefoot and sun-kissed, her stubborn cowlick defiantly standing tall, laughed with pure joy as she stretched her hand toward the corral, where Sawyer stood, 2 horses saddled and poised for adventure. Is she ready for her first ride?" he called out, his voice laced with anticipation. "She was born ready," Juniper replied, her heart swelling as she leaned down to plant a gentle kiss on their daughter's forehead before passing her into his eager arms. Just like her dad, with a gentle yet firm grip, Sawyer lifted the girl onto the smaller saddle, the air thick with anticipation as he settled in behind her. Juniper climbed onto her horse, the powerful animal beneath her, and rode alongside them as they galloped toward the ridge, the thrill of the journey igniting her spirit. They glided through the shadows, the air thick with anticipation, punctuated only by the rare, joyful squeal of the child echoing in the stillness. The wind danced around Juniper, tousling her hair and playfully pulling at the edge of her scarf, as it murmured through the grass like a long-lost companion, returning to share secrets of the past. At the pinnacle of the ridge, they came to a halt, breathless and alert. Below them, a tapestry of red havens unfolded, interspersed with fences and grazing horses. A handful of cabins rose from the earth, still in the throes of construction for the arriving staff. Alongside it all stood a line of trees, each one a testament to Juniper's labor, planted by hand with care and purpose. And beyond that, an endless horizon stretched out, beckoning with its mysteries. Sawyer's fingers brushed against her hand, a spark igniting in the air between them. They had no reason to. As the sun sank beneath the horizon, drenching the landscape in fiery hues of red and amber, Juniper cast a wary glance over her shoulder at the weathered wooden archway that signaled the entrance to the property. A new sign dangled from the beam, its surface simple yet hand-carved, the edges frayed and weathered by time. Red Haven, a sanctuary where no soul is ever forsaken. Her smile blossomed, a reflection of the undeniable truth that enveloped her now. Not merely for the children, nor solely for the horses, but for her, and for the man standing beside her, who once felt adrift, lost in a world that offered no home, and now found his place right here in this moment. With a shared resolve, they guided their horses homeward, the wind urging them on, the sun warming their backs, and a future now within their grasp, no longer a distant chase. It had already tracked them down. In the most unforgiving landscapes, where the winds howl like lost souls, one can stumble upon a revelation, the true essence of home, hidden in the shadows of despair, waiting to be discovered. Sawyer and Juniper emerged from the desert, not merely as survivors, but as warriors forged by the unforgiving sands. They seized their narrative, a tale not shaped by wealth, treachery, or dread, but by the subtle decisions that hold the greatest significance: to remain steadfast, to battle for justice, to embrace love, even when the world has done everything in its power to sway you otherwise. If their journey resonated within you, if it sparked the realization that no soul is too shattered, too late, or too lost to be reclaimed, then we beckon you to join us by subscribing to Soul-Stirring Stories. In this place, each story unfolds like a whisper of resilience, revealing that even in the most unforgiving ground, hope can take root. Healing, too, emerges in the most surprising of moments, beckoning from the shadows. Hit that subscribe button, activate the notification bell, and embark on a journey with us through tales that uplift, heal, and resonate within your soul long after the last word has been spoken. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and keep in mind, no matter where you find yourself, there is someone out there who believes in the path that guides you back home. Stories that awaken the spirit.